Long before fire warmed the night, the only light was the sky. Imagine lying on the cool stone at the mouth of a cave, your breath slow, your body heavy with exhaustion. Above you, an ocean of stars, brighter than we can see today, stretches from horizon to horizon. The cavemen, our ancestors, looked up at those same eternal lights, not with names for constellations, not with science, but with wonder. They closed their eyes beneath them, safe in the thought that the stars would still be there when morning came. Tonight, you too can rest beneath that ancient sky, carried by the same quiet rhythm of breath and dream that has soothed humanity for thousands of years. Before fire was tamed, before walls of stone rose into cities, before names and languages gave shape to thought, there was only the night sky. And for the cavemen, that sky was everything: ceiling, compass, mystery, and comfort. When the sun fell behind the mountains and the plains dimmed to silver, the air grew colder, sharper, and the world slipped into silence broken only by the calls of unseen animals. Yet above, the stars awakened, countless points of light piercing the vast dark, steady and watchful. Imagine them lying together at the mouth of a cave, their bodies heavy with fatigue after a long day of hunting and gathering, the smell of earth and fur thick around them, their skin marked by dust, sweat, and wind. And yet their eyes turned upward, wide and unblinking. They did not know the names of Orion or Sirius. They did not trace constellations as we do, but still they recognized patterns, clusters that returned again and again, guiding their movements, marking the passage of seasons, whispering silently of change and return. To them, the stars were not distant suns, but living presences, guardians hanging in the heavens, too far to touch, but close enough to feel. Children, curled against their mothers, pointed tiny fingers at the brightest ones, giggling in soft tones, their voices hushed, as if they understood that night required reverence, while elders, their faces lined from years of sun and hunger, gazed at the sky with something deeper, a quiet awe that reached beyond survival, a sense that the stars had always been there and always would be, even when they themselves were gone. Beneath this endless ceiling, dreams came more easily, because in the cold dark, the stars gave them something no fire could yet offer: constancy, a reminder that no matter how wild the world became, there was order above, shining, unbroken, eternal. Their sleep was shallow, stirred by the rustle of leaves, the pad of paws on soil. But when their eyes closed, the image of those lights stayed with them, threading into their dreams, shaping visions of great animals walking across the heavens, of ancestors whose spirits joined the stars when breath left their bodies, of journeys across open plains lit not by torches, but by the silver of the night sky. And so, every evening, when the sky turned black and the stars bloomed, the cavemen entered a world that belonged not only to beasts and shadows, but to imagination. For though they could not name it, could not describe it, the stars made them feel less alone, less fragile, as if someone was always watching, guiding, protecting. And tonight, as you picture that ancient sky, imagine lying there with them, your back against cool stone, your face tilted upward, the same stars gazing down on you, unchanged across the millennia. Their light is the same light touching your skin now, their eternal glow binding you to those who came before. Let yourself rest in that thought, as they did, breathing slowly, surrendering to the quiet comfort of the night, until sleep takes you gently, the way it once took them beneath the eternal stars. The dreams of the cavemen were born not from words but from images, sounds and feelings carried into sleep by the eternal stars above them. For as their bodies grew heavy with exhaustion and their eyes slipped shut, the last thing they saw was the vast sky scattered with light, and those lights seeped into their minds, painting their inner worlds with visions that stretched far beyond the caves and forests they knew. In their dreams, animals grew larger than life, mammoths walking with footsteps that shook the earth, their tusks glowing like crescents of the moon, while wolves became shadow spirits, darting through the night, not as predators, but as companions, their eyes lit with starlight. Rivers, which by day were obstacles to cross or places to drink, became silver ribbons flowing upward into the heavens, carrying souls toward the stars, and mountains, dark and looming in reality, transformed into glowing guardians, their peaks aflame with celestial fire. These dreams were not idle fantasies, but truths to them, experiences as real as waking life, shaping how they understood the world, how they passed wisdom from elder to child without words. Because when a child dreamed of the hunt, it was not just imagination, but initiation, a rehearsal of courage and instinct given to them by the stars themselves. The elders, when they dreamed, saw further still. Ancestors, with faces familiar yet unknown, reaching out from the sky to remind them that life was a thread unbroken, that each breath connected to breaths long past and yet to come. Some nights, after waking from such dreams, they would sit silently at the cave's mouth, gazing upward, their chests heavy with the knowledge that though they could not explain what they had seen, they had glimpsed something greater, a pattern too vast to hold in waking thought. And always, the stars were there, constant, steady, eternal, seeding those visions, guiding their inner journeys, giving shape to stories that would one day become myths, religions, and constellations, but which now existed only as whispers. In the mind, pictures painted in dreamscapes that vanished with the dawn. Imagine them stirring in their sleep, shifting on the cold stone floor, murmuring softly as their minds wandered through cosmic landscapes, their bodies vulnerable, yet their spirits roaming freely across skies that had no limits. In those dreams, the fear of night softened. The beasts outside the cave became symbols rather than threats. Their shadows turned into teachers, their power woven into lessons. Even hunger, sharp and constant in waking hours, dulled in dreams, replaced by visions of endless fields where food grew abundant, where the hunt always succeeded, where children never went without. Dreams were gifts, born from the union of tired bodies and the eternal sky. Gifts that carried hope into days that were often hard and uncertain. And though they could not speak of them as we do, though they had no words for dream, they felt its presence deeply, and it shaped them, gave them strength, reminded them that even in darkness, the mind could find light. Tonight, as you imagine them sleeping beneath the stars, let yourself drift into their dreams too. Let the mammoths march slowly across your imagination. Let the rivers of silver carry you upward. Let the ancestors' faces appear and fade, guiding you with a comfort older than language. For the dreams of the cavemen were not theirs alone. They were the first sparks of the human spirit, the first steps into imagination, the first reminders that we are more than survival, that within us lies a world as vast as the stars themselves. And as you breathe slowly, as your own body grows, heavy with rest, remember that the same stars that filled their eyes, the same stars that filled their dreams, still shine above you now, eternal, waiting to carry you into your own gentle sleep. In the quiet hours of night, when the fire had burned down to glowing embers and the cave was wrapped in silence, the stars did not belong to one person alone, but to all of them, shining equally on every soul gathered at the stone's edge. And in that shared gaze, a subtle bond grew, stronger than hunger or fear. A child, restless in sleep, would roll against the warmth of a parent, soothed by the steady rhythm of another heartbeat. And without words, comfort passed like a thread, tying them together in trust. A hunter, weary from the chase, might glance toward another across the shadows, and though no speech was exchanged, the look itself was enough to say, we survived today, and we will face tomorrow together. Lovers, in their earliest form, lay side by side, not naming what they felt, not carving it into vows, but simply breathing in unison. Their closeness a quiet promise written not in language, but in touch. And above all of them, the eternal stars looked down, bearing witness to these first bonds of family, of friendship, of love. In time, dreams that one person carried alone began to spill into the group. A hunter might wake startled from a vision of a giant stag glowing with fire, and in the morning he would act it out with gestures, his hands shaping antlers, his voice humming low, and others would watch, curious, responding with nods and laughter, until the dream became a story shared. A fragment of imagination no longer hidden in one mind but alive in many. Around the fire, the oldest among them sometimes lifted hands toward the heavens, pointing at a cluster of bright lights, their eyes shining as if to say, "There is meaning there, something more than what we see." And though the children did not understand, they felt wonder ripple through them, learning without words that the stars were not only beautiful but important, a mystery woven into their very lives. Slowly, night after night, as the stars returned and dreams unfolded, something within the group deepened, a recognition that they were not alone in their thoughts, that even in the silence of sleep they were connected, sharing the same lights above, the same shadows around them, the same hopes carried into dawn. And perhaps it was here, in these silent gatherings beneath the eternal sky, that humanity first learned the sweetness of belonging, of leaning on one another, of finding safety not just in caves or fire, but in each other's presence. For what is love, if not the comfort of another heartbeat close by? What is community, if not the quiet knowledge that the same stars shine on us all? As you imagine them now, lying in clusters of fur and skin, their breath mingling, their bodies pressed, close against the cold, picture how their spirits softened too, how fear gave way to warmth, how the night became not only a time of danger, but of closeness, intimacy, and wonder. And let yourself feel that same comfort, that even now, across thousands of years, you too are part of that long chain of humans gazing upward, sleeping beneath the same eternal stars, connected not by words, but by something deeper, older, unbreakable. And so, as the long night stretches on, the story of the cavemen beneath the eternal stars does not end with them, for their breaths became the breaths of those who followed. Their dreams gave shape to myths. Their bonds gave rise to families, tribes, and eventually the great woven fabric of humanity. Yet at its heart, nothing has changed, because the same stars they saw still burn above you now, steady and eternal, witnesses to the fragile yet beautiful thread of human life. Think of them. Thousands of years ago, lying on the cold stone floor, their bodies curled close for warmth, their hearts beating fast from the chase of the day, yet softening as they gazed upward, and realized that in your own quiet moments, when you look at the night sky before closing your eyes, you are repeating what they once did, carried by the same rhythm of breath, touched by the same light. In their time, the stars were more than decoration. They were a map, a compass, a comfort, a reminder that even in the vast darkness there was order and meaning. And though centuries have passed, though we have built towers of glass and steel, though we have named and measured every constellation, deep inside we still need that same comfort, still long for the quiet assurance that the stars give, that we are small, but not alone, fragile, yet part of something endless. The cavemen did not know the word eternal, yet they felt it in their bones. They did not speak of infinity, yet they lay beneath it every night. They did not write of love, yet they pressed closer in the dark, their warmth shared like a secret. And you, lying here now, are not so different from them. For your body too longs for rest, your mind too drifts into dreams shaped by light and shadow, your heart too seeks connection, comfort, and peace. In this way, time folds in on itself, and the distance between their cave and your bed disappears, leaving only the stars, ancient, unbroken, eternal, shining down on both. Let that thought sink into you, gently, like a soft blanket, that no matter how the world shifts, no matter how heavy your day has been, no matter how many thoughts crowd your mind, there has always been this sky, always been this night, always been the stars, and they have always been enough. Let your breath slow as theirs once did. Let your body grow heavy as theirs once did. Let the eternal stars keep watch over you as they once did, and drift now into your own dreams, knowing you are part of a story older than words, older than fire, older than time itself. Sleep well, traveler, for the stars are with you, as they have always been, and as they always will be. And so the long night stretches endlessly, the same way it did for those who came before us, and the story of the cavemen lying beneath the eternal stars does not end in their caves, does not fade away with the ashes of their fires, but continues quietly in us, carried forward through breath, through memory, written not on walls, but in blood, in heartbeats, in dreams that still flow, across generations. Imagine again those first humans, curled in their furs, their eyelids heavy from hunger, from effort, from the weight of survival, and yet even in that exhaustion, their gaze still lifted toward the endless dark sky, where light spilled like diamonds scattered by an unseen hand. They had no words to capture what they felt, but their bodies knew, their spirits understood, that something infinite hovered above, something vast and constant, something that reminded them that even in struggle, even in fear, there was a rhythm larger than themselves. They looked up and saw the stars as guardians, perhaps spirits, perhaps ancestors, perhaps a mystery they would never touch. And in that mystery they found comfort, a reassurance that life had meaning beyond the raw hunt and fleeting hunger. And now, thousands of years later, you too lie beneath those very same lights. Though your roof may hide them, though your city hums with noise, though your life seems so distant from the cave and the fire, the stars remain, ancient and unbroken, still offering their silent comfort to those who pause long enough to feel it. The cavemen did not name their constellations, but they felt the pull of patterns. They did not write myths, but they dreamed them. They did not speak of love, but they lived it in closeness, in warmth, in the shared heartbeat of families breathing together in the dark. And in truth, you are not so different. For when you close your eyes tonight, when you feel the rise and fall of your chest, when you allow your thoughts to slow and drift, you are doing what they once did, surrendering to the night, trusting in the quiet guardians above, letting go of the weight of the day. Their story is not history locked away. It is still alive in you, in the way you long for comfort, in the way you search for meaning, in the way you feel awe when you look at the night sky. Humanity has crossed oceans, built empires, reached the moon itself, yet the oldest truth remains unchanged. We all sleep beneath the same eternal stars. Let yourself feel that truth now. Let it soften your body. Let it ease your mind. Breathe as they breathed, slow and deep. Picture their faces illuminated by starlight. Picture their children curled safely against them. Picture the fire fading as they drift into dreams, and let yourself join them, not as a stranger, but as family across time. For you belong to this unbroken line. You belong to the story that began in caves and under constellations. You belong to the rhythm of sleep that has soothed humanity since its beginning. And in that belonging, there is peace. Rest now, for the same stars that guided them through endless nights now guide you into your own, eternal and steady, carrying you gently into dreams. Sleep well, traveler, for the story continues with you. The eternal stars were not only companions in the night, they were also the first teachers, silent guides who spoke in patterns of light and shadow. And though the cavemen had no language to describe it, they began to sense the lessons written across the heavens. Night after night, generation after generation, they watched as some stars rose where others set, as the moon grew fat and then thin, as certain bright clusters returned with the turning of seasons, and slowly, their survival began to entwine with this cosmic rhythm. Imagine them, huddled at the cave's edge, watching the same horizon where the mammoths roamed, noticing that when one familiar group of stars appeared just before dawn, certain plants began to bud, or certain herds moved across the plains. And though they could not chart it on parchment, they carried this wisdom in memory, passing it silently to their children, who would one day pass it to theirs. The stars became a calendar long before, Calendars existed, a compass long before compasses were made, a map written not in ink, but in light. And yet the stars were more than utility. They were wonder. They were beauty. They were the first mysteries to inspire something deeper than need. Perhaps in those quiet nights, as the fire dwindled and silence wrapped the cave, one among them lifted a hand to the sky and traced invisible lines, connecting stars into shapes. A hunter, a beast, a river of spirits. And in doing so, planted the earliest seeds of story, of art, of imagination. These were not mere fancies, but truths to them, lived and breathed, woven into the way they saw the world. A child pointing at the moon might laugh, might cry out in delight. And though no words framed the thought, everyone understood that something magical bound them to that glowing circle. And in this way, the stars not only guided their bodies, but awakened their minds. They learned patience from the slow rising of constellations, courage from the endless darkness lit only by faint sparks of fire in the heavens, and hope from the simple fact that no matter how heavy the night, the stars always returned. Think of them learning to mark their steps by starlight, following familiar clusters as they traveled across vast plains, their path illuminated not by torches, but by the steady glow above. Think of them realizing, in their own quiet way, that time itself could be trusted, that the cycle of stars was as dependable as the cycle of breath. And now think of yourself, lying beneath the same eternal canopy, your own life so different and yet so similar, because when you look upward, when you see the same lights, you too are a student of the stars, though you may not always know it. They remind you to slow down, to notice, to trust in patterns larger than yourself. They whisper the same lessons they whispered to the cavemen, that life is not chaos but rhythm, that darkness is never empty but filled with light, that you are small but also part of something infinite. Tonight, let those lessons sink into you as they once sank into them. Imagine you are beside them, watching as the constellations drift slowly west, as the moonlight spills silver across the grass, as your heart slows to match the rhythm of the universe itself. The stars have been teaching us for longer than memory, longer than fire, longer than language, and they will continue long after we are gone. Rest in that thought, and let the wisdom of the eternal sky carry you gently into sleep. As the cavemen lay beneath the eternal sky, wrapped in furs and shadows, it was not only the stars themselves that gave them comfort, but the feeling that within those shining points lived the spirits of those who had walked before, the ancestors, whose voices still echoed faintly in dreams, whose presence could still be felt in the cold night air. When a hunter did not return from the chase, or when an elder's breath grew shallow and finally stilled, the grief was sharp and wordless, a heaviness pressing on their chests. Yet when night fell and the heavens opened, they found solace in the thought that the lost were not gone, but had risen into the sky, watching, guiding, glowing. Around the fire, children sometimes pointed at the brightest star and whispered with wide eyes, as if they recognized someone they loved shining back at them. Mothers cradling their little ones told stories, not in words, but in hums and gestures, lifting a hand to the heavens, their meaning clear. Your grandfather is there, your ancestor walks with the stars. And so, over countless nights, the sky became more than just a roof of light. It became a memory, a place where the dead still lived, where love never vanished, but only transformed. Dreams deepened this connection, carrying visions of familiar, faces glowing with starlight, voices calling softly in the dark, footsteps leading across glowing plains of night. In these dreams, ancestors offered reassurance, comfort, wisdom, not as spoken lessons but as feelings, as gentle nudges of courage, as warmth in the cold. An elder might wake with tears on his cheeks, unable to explain, but knowing he had spoken with one long gone. A child might smile in her sleep, murmuring as if hearing a lullaby sung by a mother no longer there. These were not accidents to them, not mere fancies of the mind, but real encounters. The the proof that the bond between the living and the dead could never be broken. Slowly, these dreams became the first seeds of faith, the quiet beginnings of belief that life continues, that there is something more, that when breath ends, spirit rises, and always, the stars were the bridge, the doorway, the reminder that the distance between the living and the lost was not infinite, but only as far as the night sky above. Imagine them now, huddled close, speaking in gestures as they pointed upward, their hearts swelling with the knowledge that their ancestors kept watch, that they were not alone even in grief. And imagine how that thought softened their nights, how it gave them strength to keep moving forward, to keep hunting, to keep raising their children, to keep dreaming. For the stars did not only shine, they comforted, they healed, they whispered, "You are not alone, you never were, you never will be." And as you listen now, as you let your body sink deeper into rest, let yourself feel that same truth, that those you have loved, those you have lost, are not gone, but live still in memory, in spirit, in the great sky above, eternal and close. Let the stars be your comfort as they once were for the cavemen, guiding you into dreams where you are never alone, where the voices of love still reach you, where ancestors walk beside you in the quiet night. When at last the cavemen tamed fire, the nights transformed, for suddenly the cold dark was no longer endless and threatening, but softened by the flicker of flames. And yet even as they gathered close around its warmth, the eternal stars remained. Above, steady and silent, a second fire burning across the heavens. Imagine them seated at the mouth of the cave, the glow of embers painting their faces in orange, while above, countless points of light blazed white against the vast black, two fires mirroring each other, one fragile and close, the other eternal and untouchable. The fire in their hands crackled, hissed, and smoked, a living thing that needed feeding, guarding, tending, while the fire above never wavered, never dimmed, never asked for anything but a glance of wonder. Together they created a balance, warmth below, guidance above, safety in both directions. Children fell asleep to the rhythm of sparks leaping upward, as if the earth's fire were trying to reach its older brother in the sky. Elders whispered silent gratitude, for the fire at their feet kept away the wolves, while the fire above kept away despair, reminding them that even the deepest night was never empty. Around the flames, shadows danced on the stone walls, shaping animals, hunters, spirits, stories. And as eyes grew heavy, these shadows slipped into dreams, merging with the visions seeded by the stars. Perhaps it was here, in this meeting of Earthfire and Skyfire, that the first true stories were born. Tales acted out in flickering silhouettes, then carried into slumber, where the stars themselves seemed to listen. The cavemen felt both small and powerful at once, holding one kind of fire in their hands while gazing at another that stretched across infinity. In those nights, the hearth below and the heavens above became two guardians, watching, warming, guiding, each in their own way. And when at last their bodies sank into rest, the crackle of embers echoing the shimmer of constellations, they surrendered fully to sleep, trusting that between the two fires, they were safe. Tonight, as you imagine, them drifting into dreams, let yourself feel the same dual comfort, the warmth of the world. Around you and the vast light above you, you too live between two guardians, the simple human comforts close at hand, and the eternal calm of the stars beyond reach. Rest in that balance, as they once did, and let both fires, earth and sky, guide you gently into deep, unbroken sleep. Before the world was filled with books, before ink touched parchment, before words even existed, there were only voices and gestures, shadows on stone, and the soft hum of breath. And in the caves of our earliest ancestors, this was enough to create the first stories before sleep. Imagine the scene. The fire crackles low, no longer roaring but pulsing gently, its embers glowing like tiny stars that have fallen to the ground, while above, the eternal heavens shine with their countless lights, steady and unblinking. The children, exhausted from the long day, curl against their mothers, their eyes heavy but still curious, gazing at the flickering shapes on the cave walls where shadows dance. Wolves leaping, mammoths charging, hunters with spears raised high. An elder, sitting closest to the fire, begins to move his hands, slowly and deliberately, casting forms into the shifting glow, while his voice, low and rough like gravel, hums with sound that rises and falls in rhythm with the flames. There are no words, not as we know them, but the story is clear. A great beast pursued, a hunter's courage tested, the final triumph that brings food to the tribe. The children watch wide-eyed, learning without language, their imaginations carrying them further than the walls of the cave, further than the reach of the fire, until in their minds, they too are running with the hunters, feeling the earth beneath their feet, seeing the stars above as witnesses to the chase. And when at last the elder lowers his hands and lets silence return, the only sound is the wind outside and the steady breath of those drifting towards sleep. In these moments, the first bedtime stories were born, not to entertain as much as to bind, to connect, to pass on memory and courage. A hunter who saw a strange dream might act it out for the group, his gestures grand, his sounds mimicking thunder or rain, and the others would laugh softly, nod, or mimic back, until the dream became more than private, became shared. And in this sharing, the tribe grew closer, their fears softened, their hopes strengthened, their sense of belonging deepened. The fire gave them warmth, but the stories gave them meaning, and the stars above, unchanging and eternal, gave them the sense that these stories, though fleeting, were part of something vast and timeless. Imagine the comfort of those nights. Children drifting into slumber while elders' voices wrapped around them. Their dreams filled with visions that came not from their own minds, but from the stories given to them. Each night the ritual repeated, as natural as breathing. Gather, eat, warm themselves, tell, listen, drift into dreams. The stories were not entertainment, they were survival, teaching children how to fear, how to be brave, how to hope, how to see the world not only as danger, but as wonder. They were also love, even if love had no name yet. For what is love but the desire to share part of your inner world with another, to protect them not only with food and warmth, but with comfort and imagination? As the tribe lay down together, pressed shoulder to shoulder, lulled by the rhythm of fire and voice, their hearts beat in unison, and the stars above burned as if nodding in approval. And now, as you lie here listening, you are not so far from them, for you too drift into dreams carried by stories, your mind weaving images as old as humanity itself, your spirit soothed by the knowledge that long before books and screens, before pens and poems, there were stories told in firelight, shared in whispers, gifted before sleep, binding people together in a net of memory and wonder. You belong to that same lineage, and the stars that watched over them still watch over you, listening as you fall slowly, gently, peacefully into your own night of dreams. Long before clocks ticked or calendars marked time, before anyone spoke of hours or minutes, the only rhythm our ancestors knew was the slow, eternal breathing of the earth itself, the rising of the sun, the falling of the night, the glowing return of dawn, and in this endless cycle, the first lullaby of humanity was sung. Imagine the cavemen resting at the mouth of their shelter as twilight deepened, watching the golden light drain from the sky, shadows stretching longer and softer, the air cooling with each passing moment. There was no need to tell the time, no need to rush or resist. They trusted completely that night would always follow day, and day would always return after night. This certainty was their comfort, their anchor, their lullaby. And as they felt the earth tilt gently from light to darkness, they allowed themselves to sink into rest with no fear of being abandoned by the sun. Each evening carried the same calm ceremony, the fire built, the meal shared, the murmurs and stories fading into quiet as the stars blinked awake. Then came the great stillness, the moment when the world itself seemed to hush. The animals curled into their dens, the trees stood motionless in the cool dark, and only the hum of insects and the breath of wind remained. For the cavemen, this was the song of the night, not made of words or instruments, but of rhythms deeper and older, the heartbeat of nature itself. To sleep in that rhythm was to surrender, not in weakness, but in trust, to believe with their whole being that dawn would come again. Imagine lying beside them, your body sinking into the earth as theirs once did, your breath joining their ancient breath, slow and deep, as the great wheel of day and night turns above you. With each inhale, you take in the cool stillness of the night. With each exhale, you release the weight of the day, just as they once did, countless generations before you. And as their eyes closed, heavy and certain, they carried within them the warmth of fire, the echo of stories, and the quiet reassurance that the sun, though gone, had only stepped away to let the stars keep watch. In those hours of darkness, they learned that rest was not an ending, but a passage, a bridge from one day to the next, a gift given freely by the cycle of the world. They trusted it so completely that their hearts slowed, their muscles softened, their spirits loosened, floating into dreams as natural as breathing. This was their lullaby, the rhythm of night and day, the promise of return, the certainty that light would always follow darkness. And as you lie here now, you are part of that same rhythm, your body tuned to the same cosmic song, your dreams guided by the same turning of the earth. Close your eyes, let the rhythm cradle you, let the first lullaby of humanity sing you into sleep, steady and eternal, as it has sung for every soul before you, and will sing for every soul yet to come. When the cavemen surrendered to the night, their bodies pressed against the earth and their breath deep and steady, they did not think of sleep as an ending, but as the beginning of a journey, a silent migration into realms that stretched beyond the reach of firelight, beyond the stone walls of the cave, into places where the spirit could wander freely. To close their eyes was to step into an invisible landscape, one that did not need roads or rivers, for the pathways were carved by the mind itself, flowing as fluidly as dreams, bending and shifting like smoke rising from embers. Imagine them lying together, dozens of souls bound by kinship and survival, yet each one embarking on their own voyage, a voyage where the boundaries of the body dissolved, and the hunter might find himself soaring over the plains like an eagle, or swimming in dark rivers lit by starlight, or meeting the gaze of an ancestor whose voice carried no sound, yet filled the heart with certainty. For the cavemen, these inner journeys mattered as much as the waking ones, for they taught, warned, comforted, and sometimes frightened, but always reminded the dreamer that life was larger than what could be seen by day. Sleep was not wasted time. It was a second existence, a night world that balanced the day world, giving shape to fears, courage to the uncertain, hope to the weary. Around the fire in the mornings, stories of these night journeys were shared, just as stories of the hunt or the storm were shared, and both were treated with reverence. For how could one dismiss a journey that felt so real, that stirred the heart so deeply? Perhaps one dreamed of water, and the tribe took it as a sign to move toward rivers. Perhaps one dreamed of fire, and the group prepared for danger. Perhaps one dreamed of birth, and joy spread through the camp. The journey of sleep was collective, for though each soul wandered alone, the meanings were woven into the life of all. And still, behind all dreams, there was the greater journey, the act of surrender itself, of trusting the darkness, of giving oneself to the unknown, night after night, with faith that one would return. That faith was a gift, passed down from countless generations, the belief that just as the sun would rise again, the sleeper would wake again, carried safely through the long voyage by unseen hands. Tonight, as you drift into your own sleep, imagine yourself walking. Beside them, the fire at your back, the stars above, your heart softening as you step into that vast inner plane where the limits of waking life fall away. See how even now you are part of the same journey, traveling not only into dreams, but into the shared memory of all who have ever slept, all who have ever trusted the night to carry them. Your body is heavy, your breath slow, and your spirit, like theirs, prepares to travel beyond firelight into the wide, endless journey of sleep, where you will find rest, visions, and peace waiting for you. When the cavemen finally lay down after a day of gathering, hunting, and surviving against the raw wilderness, the act of closing their eyes was not simply the end of their waking hours. It was the beginning of a vast and mysterious journey, one that felt as important as the hunts they endured or the rivers they crossed. For sleep was not absence. It was movement into another realm, a silent migration into landscapes that no firelight could reach. And yet every night they trusted themselves to take that step. Picture the scene. The fire at the center of the cave glows faintly now, its bright flames reduced to glowing embers, red and orange pulsing like the heartbeat of the earth itself, shadows stretching across the rough stone walls as if alive, breathing along with the sleepers who curl together for warmth. Some are young children who fidget and murmur, their small bodies adjusting to the hard ground, while others are elders, their faces worn like leather, their breathing slower, heavier, but in each of them a common surrender is happening. They are slipping past the edge of awareness into the place beyond. To them, sleep was not an unknown terror, but a known necessity, and perhaps more than that, it was a gift, for in sleep, the body healed from bruises, cuts, and exhaustion, and the mind opened doors to visions that could not be summoned in daylight. When one dreamed, they did not think of it as fantasy. It was a journey, a travel into another layer of existence, one where the rules were fluid, where a hunter could transform into a bird soaring over valleys, where a mother could hold the hand of a child long gone, where an ancestor, unseen during the day, might appear in the glow of starlight within the dream to offer a silent nod of comfort or warning. This was the long journey of sleep, a voyage where each night became a crossing from the known to the unknown, and in this crossing, there was both danger and hope. Imagine one of them lying on the cold earth, his body sore from carrying a heavy kill, his breath steady as he drifts away, and suddenly he finds himself running not through forests but across endless plains lit by moons brighter than any he had ever seen. In the distance, mammoths trumpet, their tusks gleaming like ivory spears, and though he is only dreaming, the urgency feels real, his muscles tensing as if truly chasing, his heart racing, his spirit alive with both fear and exhilaration. When he wakes, the memory of this journey clings to him like morning mist, and he tells the others, who listen intently, for they do not dismiss these night travels as nothing. They believe the dream carries knowledge, perhaps a sign that the herd is close, perhaps a call from the ancestors. In this way, the journeys of the night were tied to the survival of the day, blurring the line between vision and waking life. The long journey of sleep was also communal, for though each soul wandered alone into their inner landscapes, the telling of those journeys at dawn bound the tribe together, weaving private visions into a shared fabric of meaning. If one dreamed of water, the tribe considered moving toward rivers. If one dreamed of fire, they prepared for storms or conflict. If one dreamed of death, they grew cautious, more watchful of their surroundings. Thus, the journeys of the night were not wasted. They were tools, guides, maps that helped them navigate a world of constant uncertainty. But beyond the practical, there was the comfort. For in the long journey of sleep, they found rest not only of the body, but of the spirit. The elders, especially, found peace in these travels. For to dream of the dead was to remember that life did not end at the grave, but continued in the shadowed halls of dreams. In this belief, there was courage, For death became less frightening if one could meet the departed each night in visions, still hear their laughter, still see their faces, still feel their guidance. And so, the long journey of sleep was not feared. It was revered, welcomed, embraced. Imagine the silence of the cave when all had drifted away. Only the faint crack of an ember and the whisper of wind at the cave's mouth. Dozens of bodies lie still, but inside each skull a universe is alive, each mind traveling down different rivers of vision, different planes of memory, different skies of imagination. Some dreams are simple, like chasing an animal or seeing firelight dance, but others are profound, vast, timeless, and when the dreamer awakens, the echo of it lingers, as if they had truly stepped beyond this world into another. For us today, dreams may seem fleeting, but for them, they were portals, reminders that life was more than flesh and bone, that mystery was not just around them in storms and stars, but inside them as well. And perhaps this is why, when they closed their eyes, they did so with trust. Trust in the cycle of the earth, trust in the return of the sun, trust in the journey of the night to restore them, teach them, and return them safely at dawn. Tonight, as you prepare for your own rest, you can feel yourself walking into this same lineage. You too stand at the edge of the firelight, knowing that when your eyes close, you will step into landscapes that cannot be mapped, into meetings that cannot be planned, into journeys as old as humanity itself. Let your breath deepen, slow and steady, as theirs once did. Let your body feel heavy against the ground, as theirs did. And then, let your spirit loosen, drifting outward, wandering beyond the edges of this moment. Know that, like them, you are safe, that your long journey of sleep is not an ending but a path, a sacred passage that carries you gently through the night. And as they once woke each dawn, greeted by embers and birdsong, so too will you wake, carried back from your travels, restored, renewed, a little more whole than when you began. This is the long journey of sleep, eternal, shared, and waiting for you now.